Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heroes Mindset Podcast. Today, I have Michele Kerulis on, and she's going to explain to you how to run a marathon and why you should really get into it. It's great to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you are a counselor, right? And you spend a lot of time talking about helping people sort of get active, and a lot of it is based off physical activity and the positive benefits from physical activity. So I'd love to hear you explain, why should people be physically active?
Well, there are so many reasons why people should be physically active, and it's been a massive part of my career to help people understand that, because I'm a professor at the Family Institute at Northwestern University. I specialize in counseling, general mental health counseling, overall wellness, and in sport and exercise. So in the field of sport and exercise psychology, I am a known expert, and same thing within the field of counseling. So I take those two worlds of our psychological well-being and our physiological well-being, bring them together to help people understand what they can do to lead a healthy lifestyle mentally and physically.
So let me ask you, so most people, when they try to start, like everybody knows that they should work out. It's really, it's been proven, right? Everybody knows, but at the same time, people don't, right? So what is the reason why people don't work out?
I think part of the reason is because it can be intimidating, and people oftentimes feel like they can't do it. So if you look at some of the commercials for really large gyms or facilities or boutique studios, you'll see ultra fit people doing these really hard workouts. So if you have somebody who's new to exercise, that could feel like an impossible goal to reach. And I think once people understand how to set their goals in a way that is achievable, it's measurable, and they have people around them to support them, they can understand that they can take literally one step at a time to work towards their fitness goals. And fitness goals, really, in my perspective, when I'm talking with people, are intended to help you live a happy and healthy lifestyle. So it's not just deciding to go to the gym once in your life and you're done, but it is something that you integrate into your lifestyle.
Yeah, so I think that most people, really struggle with that idea of connecting physical exercise and happiness. It's not really obvious how the two really correlate. So can you explain really how physical exercise can actually make you happier?
Well, there is a neurochemical component where we have feel-good neurotransmitters in our brain. And we know through several pieces of research that when we exercise, we trigger those happy neurotransmitters or feel-good neurotransmitters.
Are those endorphins?
So that's one major, endorphins, yeah. So that's one major reason why we encourage people to exercise. Also, it can help boost your confidence in a couple of different ways. One is, again, going back to achieving goals that you thought you might not be able to succeed in. And that is a major factor in helping people know that they can reach success, not only in their fitness and exercise goals, but also that can translate to other areas of life and lead to confidence and happiness in other areas of life.
Yeah, I just found that, I started working out consistently for really the first time, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And one of the greatest things that really came from it is it affected every area of my life, right? It really did. Like, I really didn't notice, just a simple 5-minute workout in the morning, nothing crazy, nothing, going to the gym and lifting for 2 hours or an hour or running for 3 miles. Just the simple act of working out has such a tremendous effect on my efficiency throughout the day and really getting my day started and things like that. Do you have any explanation as to why that is?
Well, I can say one of my favorite articles that I wrote is on Psychology Today, and it's called What I Love and Hate About Early Morning Workouts, because I am definitely a night owl, and every now and then I will try to be an early bird. And what I have found out is when I exercise first thing in the morning, and let me tell you, in Chicago in the wintertime, waking up 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym, it's cold, it's miserable. I just want to stay in bed with my nice warm blanket. But I also will tell you, once I finish that workout, I feel amazing and have such a big success for the day, and it's probably still dark out. But my creativity is just really exponentially expanded when I exercise in the morning. So I think that's something that people can look into, and it just gets that one checklist off of your to-do for that day too.
Yeah, I think there's one great thing that David Goggins talks about this. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and David Goggins is a Navy SEAL who's very disciplinary and focused. And Joe Rogan and David Goggins were talking about how they both run in the morning. And one of the things that they were saying was that it does suck, right? Like running, in the morning, running for a while, you get up and you're like, I really don't want to do it. But at the same time, there's something beautiful that comes from what he called embracing the suck, being able to push yourself past that boundary and starting off your day, or, maybe even ending it with this idea of, I didn't want to do something, but it was good for me and I got it done. And now I feel good afterwards. That's such a powerful feeling. And I really do think that, that me doing that personally really allows for me to jumpstart my day.
Yes, and that's called cognitive restructuring. So there is a theory of counseling called cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the main interventions that we use is restructuring people's thoughts when they have those negative thoughts. So I don't want to do this. This is too hard. I'd rather stay in bed. Whatever your negative thought is, you can shift that into a positive statement, meaning I know this is going to be a difficult workout. I know that I'm learning my running skills and I'm going to do it and I'm going to feel better when it's done. So it's taking the realistic aspect of the situation, recognizing whatever that negative point of view is, and then changing that into a positive. And the more we do that, the more our positive thoughts will be the go-to thoughts. So when you're getting ready to lace up your shoes, when you're getting ready to go on that run, you'll get more in the mindset of, I do feel great when I'm done running. So yes, this is going to be a challenging run. Yes, it's cold out or it's hot out or whatever weather elements might be. I'm going to feel great afterwards.
Yeah, I have a friend that says whenever he wakes up in the morning, he always feels negative. He always feels terrible, right? He's miserable. And that's part of, we could say that's part of his cognitive framework, right? But at the same time, you're saying that running, right? Like I had that for a while, and I could say that doing workouts in the morning is something that really, really is able to boost that, right? So you're saying that we could, by doing something that really shifts our brain like that, we could really change the way we habitually think.
Absolutely. And by running first thing in the morning, exercising first thing in the morning, you're waking up your mind and your body. So you are making chemical changes in your mind and your body and getting set for that day. Wow. And if you're a nighttime exerciser, that's okay too. You'll find a routine that works for you.
Yeah. So do you think that so you do a lot of counseling work. So do you think that a lot of the people that you talk to in general are there was a study that came out that 2/3 of our thoughts in our daily activities are negative, right? So when we're just casually going through, we have thousands and thousands of thoughts, even though we don't consciously recognize most of them. And 2/3 of those are negative. So do you find that a lot of our problems in our life stem from these, negative beliefs that come maybe when we just wake up in the morning?
I do think that people allow negative beliefs to follow them more often than is helpful. And when I'm talking with my clients, I use a strength-based perspective. And a strength-based perspective means, what are you doing well? How do we increase that to decrease some of those negative thoughts? So it goes back to that cognitive restructuring and kind of reframing some of those ideas. And when I start talking to clients about the things that they are doing well, and again, this doesn't mean that we ignore some of the negative aspects of life or the negative thoughts or negative situations that happen to people. We're definitely recognizing that. And at the same time, we're recognizing what's within our control. So our thoughts and the way we frame our thoughts in order to create improvements. So when we are recognizing those negative thoughts, we want to maybe pair it with at least 2 positive thoughts so that we can, again, train our neural pathways to move more towards those positive outlooks as opposed to hanging on to some of those negative outlooks.
And one of the best ways I've found that, I think that's really, really important, right? Like being able to consciously, essentially rewire your thoughts, that is possible. And one of the best ways I've sort of found this, it's really funny. I know I talked to you about this, but have you ever heard the story of of Dean Kazanis, the ultra marathon man? This is getting back to marathons, right? He ran 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 consecutive days. And what I found is that he He said, so he ran a total of 1,300 miles in 50 straight days, which is 26.2 miles a day, which we could all say is just incredible. There's a documentary on it, and I highly suggest that people watch it. It's funny because he said that he didn't say it directly, but he sort of sees running as sort of like a pacifier, sort of like, the thing that whenever he's feeling negative thoughts or whenever he's struggling, he always has one thing that he turns his mind to. And he says, I'm going to go out on a run, right? Just something as simple as that. And I think that's very, strength-based, right? Like really not only being able to consciously rewire our thoughts, but always having that sort of thing to fall back onto. Maybe it's running, maybe it's some healthy activity, music, physical activity, falling back on that to be able to, really be able to get in the right mind space. He actually said when he was done with his 1,300 miles, his 50 marathons in 50 days, right after that, they said, what are you going to do now? He goes, I'm going to start running. And he ended up running another 1,300 miles in the next, I think it was less than 50 days. He said he ran, even after the marathon, if you put them all together, he ran 90 consecutive marathons in 90 consecutive days because of, the fact that he was just, he found his pacifier. He found his way to become positive, and that was through running.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. And some people will question that and say, well, isn't that unhealthy for you? Is that an addiction? What does that look like? So this is somebody who knows what they're doing in the sport of running. So we have to caution people about that. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily become a negative aspect in your life unless it's somehow interfering with your day-to-day responsibilities. So if you're completely ignoring your responsibilities, if you're ignoring your nutrition, your job, your school, then that becomes a problem. And that's something that we call a clinical impairment. When you are a professional runner, for example, and your job is running and that's your priority, that's different than running or exercising as an addiction. So I think that's an important distinction to make. I also think it's an incredible goal that he set to be able to do that amazing physical and psychological feat. A lot of people look up to that, and a lot of people set very similar goals based on other people's successes.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it's really nice that we have these sort of ideals to sort of like, bound ourselves, really grip ourselves on and be like, if he could do that, I could do that too. But then what you're talking about a lot on, starting really small, most people who are listening to this probably don't work out, right? And they're really trying to start working out. And the biggest problem between, being a Dean Kazanis running 50 marathons and 50 miles in 50 days or in 50 states in 50 days and where you are now is that there's such a big gap. And maybe a lot of people don't even want to get there. They just want to, maintain a good physical consistency. So I think the biggest problem that people have is the fear, right? I think we were talking about this before, about the fear that comes in between, I want to get started, but I don't know how. I can't get started. I find these real struggles in starting my routine of working out or running marathons. So what do you think is the biggest way to really, calm those fears?
I think addressing the fears and naming the fears is the first thing. So saying what are you afraid of? And with many people, it's the fear of failure. So I'm afraid if I fail, what that might look like for me and how I might self-reflect or how other people might perceive me if I fail. So the first thing that I recommend then is for people to redefine failure. And just because you don't succeed at something the first time does not mean that you are a failure in something. It's so important to go back and think about what are my ideas of who I am as a person, what is my worth, and what do I bring forward to society? And how can I be the best version of myself so I can continue contributing to society? Those are the $1 million questions. And those are the kind of things that we examine when I'm having conversations with clients. And my clients can be people who have chronic mental health concerns and clinical diagnoses. And I also have clients who are at the top of their game. They're doing really well, and they just want to continue to improve, and people all in between. So these kinds of conversations aren't only for individuals who feel like they're having a problem or having a roadblock, but I think it's important for all of us to continue to reflect on who we are and what our our impressions on the world are. So my feelings of myself as of success one day might be very different than the next day or a week from now. So when I finished my first marathon, I was on cloud nine. I loved it. The first thing I thought right when I crossed the finish line was, I am a marathoner. It was just so absolutely thrilling. And do you think I could have run a marathon the next day? Absolutely not. So my definition of success on that Sunday was very different than it was on Monday for me. So I think it's important for people to understand that it's okay and it's perfectly normal to have fears, but name those fears, understand that you as a person are worthy. And it takes practice and it takes time to develop new habits, to develop healthy habits. And there's a whole slew of information out there on the internet and different kinds of professionals who can help you with it. And I think most importantly also is to get clearance from your physician. So if you're new to exercise, you want to make sure that your body is in a state that you can handle increased stress on your physiological system. So that's important to know too. And once you have that clearance, jump online and search some positive things that have to do with running or exercise. Some people will just go online and do a search for couch to 5K or how to walk your first mile, anything like that, because the first step is literally lacing up your shoes and taking a step.
So there was actually a lot of stuff that you said in there. I definitely want to unpack it a little bit. So one of the things that you said is that there are all these boundaries that come in between. You know, one of the boundaries is physical, right? Physical as in, you know, maybe we're not ready to start working out. Maybe I have back problems. Maybe I have this problem, you know, and of course, definitely consult a physician. And by doing that, that dispels the fear of, you know, what happens if I get hurt, right? I think that's a big fear. You know, another fear that you're talking about is more, let's say neurochemical, as in, you know, we often have this, you know, this tendency, and I was talking about this recently with somebody, in the fact that we feel like it's either 5K or nothing, right? You know, couch to 5K, we'd either go for the 5K or we'll go for nothing. And it's such a flawed belief because, you know, if we really say, you know what, I'm on my couch, you know, I'm not being physically healthy, I want to start running 5Ks. The only thing is, it's very unsustainable to say, tomorrow I'm going to start running a 5K and I'm going to run a 5K every day, every week, whatever. By doing this, you're actually ignoring the structuring of your brain that has allowed you to, or that has, let's say, become habitual in you sitting on the couch, right? Or you not being physically active. Every time you start working out, your brain is really saying, stop working out, stop working out. We, you know, like go back to the couch, go back to the couch. And it takes a lot of time to be able to readjust that. You know, I've been on in my life, I've gone on these workout spurts, you know, working out super hard, waking up at 5:30 every day and going on runs, you know, or doing some lifts. And then after that month, you know, it all fades out, you know, all the energy, everything like that fades out. And the thing is, I became too intense too fast. And I think that really ties into, you know, the fear of failure, right? Because failure is so important. And a big part of it is psychological, right? Like being able to dispel that belief of I need to be the best. I need to be running a 5K in a month. Why can't you run a 5K in a year and maybe run 0.5K the first month and then run 1K the next month and then keep building up to it? You know, I think that's something that's incredibly important.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that is so fascinating about the running world is it's one of the only places where you can have a very beginning athlete, a very new runner, brand new runner on the exact same course at the same time as an elite runner and the world's best runners. So we're all in the same category in terms of we are starting this race. I can't say exactly at the same time because races start on waves and corrals. So we are on the same race course on the same day with the same spectators. It is so incredibly inspiring. And you've got people cheering as hard for that new runner as they are for the elites and as they are for the adaptive athletes and for the athletes who are in wheelchair races. So there's adaptability that can go with that. And if you are used to sitting around and not exercising, that's what your brain is used to. Your brain is used to that too. So when we do things that we're not used to psychologically and physiologically, our systems don't recognize it. So they become a little bit jolted and they think, whoa, what is going on here? And that's why it could feel so hard to start exercising, because you're just not used to it. So making those moves in your body, you get a reaction that your body is trying to understand. Is this danger? Is this bad for me? I want to just go and sit and rest again. So your systems are talking to you. And if we look at things like panic attacks, for example, they are the exact same physiological reactions as running and exercising. You have increased heart rate, increased respiration, you're sweating, your skin gets hot. So it's the exact same physiological reaction, but it's the way that we psychologically perceive those reactions that make the difference and make the change. So if people go into new exercises or into an exercise plan, knowing that they're going to feel different and recognizing, oh, okay, this is the sweating that she was talking about, or this is the increased heart rate that she was talking about. All right, I can handle this for 60 seconds. Let me try this a little bit more intensely for 60 seconds, and then I'll take a break and go back to it.
I'm a big fan of sort of reframing our the way that we look at things. I think that's something that's so important. You were talking about that in the beginning, also, let me tie this back. You're saying that, when you have someone on a wheelchair versus Usain Bolt versus someone who's just getting started, I like to think of it as there are two ways of looking at each of those type of people. Whenever I'm at the gym, I think this is something that's so important. Everybody there, this is the way I like to think about it. Everybody there is a hero. Everybody there is on a self-development journey. Everybody there is trying to change themselves for the better, but they're all different types of heroes, right? You look at someone like Usain Bolt, he is like your classic definition of a hero. He has pursued his potential and achieved it, right? That is something that is so beautiful. And we all want to do that. That's what Michael Jordan did. That's what Derek Jeter did. That's what all these amazing athletes do. They really, dedicate themselves to something that is so beautiful. But then you also have somebody like the overweight person at the gym, right? You have somebody who's 600 pounds running on the elliptical. And I think not only is it, like some people like to fat shame those people, but at the same time, that is one of the most respectable things. Like I remember the first time I really understood that. I was at the gym. I saw somebody who was very overweight. I actually I got emotional because I was like, wow, how many people out of that one person that really goes and makes the change, and starts to go to the gym and starts to make that change. There are about 100 people who are just still sitting on the couch who want to be that type of person who's just, who gets to the gym and starts that real journey of, let's call that type of hero the rags to riches, right? The type of person who has fallen off the path but can come back in, and there are all these different types of heroes that you could find. The person who starts in the beginning and has no idea what they're doing but sticks with it anyways. That's a different type of hero. And by reframing yourself as, instead of saying, oh, this sucks, I'm so much worse than Usain Bolt, you could really reframe it like the way that you were saying and be like, you know what? No, this is impressive, the feat that I'm doing. And the only thing that I can do to be more impressive is to keep going.
Yes. And I think that you brought up a lot of really good points too about judgment. Is it's completely inappropriate for us to judge other people, whether they are working out or are not working out, whatever their situation is. We don't know their individual situation. So it's wrong to judge and bully people at all, period. There's no space for that. And it's unacceptable. So when we do see people succeeding, I think it makes it even more exciting. And again, what is that definition of success to you as an individual? And then how can people around you support that? I think it's really key for us to realize. And I used to be a group fitness instructor many years ago, and I was a group fitness instructor for a very long time. And I absolutely loved it. It was one of the favorite points in my life because I had the ability to teach multiple people at a time, not only about fitness, but about confidence and just really encouraging people. And it was so wonderful to see the same people coming back to class each week, a few times a week, and then also seeing new people. So I made it a point as a fitness instructor to go up to people who I did not recognize and welcome them to class, welcome them beforehand and say, what can I do to help you get situated if we were using equipment or adjusting cycle bikes, anything like that. So creating that welcoming environment for new exercisers and new runners, I think is so important too.
Yeah, so I think you hit on two great points there. The first point is getting started is so hard, and it's really great to be able to really, have that support, as you keep going. My brother started up a shoe selling business, during quarantine. We were really struggling, and he's my little brother. So, I feel a little, supportive of him, I guess, naturally. And I'm sitting there, and I literally spent so much time just looking up psychological techniques to be able to help him keep going. I think that's such a hard part of, once you start, it's so tough to keep going. So I must ask, what are the factors that make one person start like I did in the beginning of going for a month and then sort of dropping off, versus those people who are very consistent and stay with it throughout?
I think there's so many individual factors that we have to look at. So there might be some intrinsic motivation where people are motivated on the inside. They can self-motivate. They don't need any external cues or external motivation to get them out there. So they might set a goal for themselves and say, I want to work out 3 to 5 days this week, and I'm just going to do it. It's great. Other people are more motivated with external factors. So that might be fitness challenges, or running with a buddy, or working with a trainer, other things like that. I think for people who are extrinsically motivated, so want some of those outside things, they're really cool programs online that you can look at. There are so many different pieces of fitness technology that are really cool, like Garmin and Fitbit and Peloton, Oura Ring, have all these different kinds of fun activities and challenges and badges. So it might just be an email coming to your inbox that says, you've walked 3 miles this week, or you've walked 1 mile, you've completed your first run. Those kind of things can be motivating for people. And I get some of those emails through the challenges, and I'm pretty internally motivated, but once I started integrating some of those challenges into my workouts, it's fun for me to get those little pop-up badges that say, you've walked across the miles, or you've walked the miles of the Sahara Desert. Or the Sahara Desert, or I can't remember what they used there, but it was tons and tons of miles. And it was maybe over a year. So getting those end of year little badges were pretty cool for me too. So I think it's important for us to realize, where do we find our motivation? Is it intrinsic? Is it extrinsic? And people ask, well, is that nature or nurture? And that's a whole other conversation. But we think about how people were raised and how their parents spoke to them. And were they encouraged as children? Were they scolded if they didn't do something well? And that's where we can look at some of those patterns of feelings of fear, or feelings of confidence, or taking risks to be able to try something new.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I think, we spend, it's so difficult to unpack ourselves. It's so difficult to be able to sit back and be like, here's the real reason why I don't do this. Here's the real reason why I struggle with this. And for intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, it's so important to be able to determine, like, really, what is motivating me to run right now, because I think after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, actually January 12th is the date that on average, this is funny, New Year's resolutions die. Right. So it's really scary, right? Like 2 weeks it takes for somebody to really just, fall off the path and do all these things. And I think in that point is a motivational dip. And in that point, you really must reconnect with yourself and be like, why is the reason that I started this in the first place? Right. And to be able to determine, okay, what is it that could actually motivate me? That is something that is so powerful. Actually, I was talking to this man named, it was Ferris Fakori. He was on my podcast, and he had this idea, and to really, I wouldn't say settle the debate, but really offer an important viewpoint. He said that for intrinsic versus extrinsic motivators, one of the most important things to do is to focus on the process over the product. He says that if you focus on, in other words, the intrinsic over the extrinsic, if you focus on the lifestyle of making a change rather than losing a certain amount of pounds, or running for X amount of miles, by doing this, then it allows for you to really be able to hit that inner motivation. So I would love to see what you think about that.
Yes, definitely focusing on the process as opposed to the outcome can help people increase that internal motivation. So we look at what are the steps that I am taking day to day to reach my goals, as opposed to how long is it going to take me to reach X amount of weights? Yeah. I want my weight to be at this number. What do I need to do? And there are some times when there are reasons why an individual might have specific weight goals, but focusing more on how you're feeling physiologically and the day-to-day things that you're doing to make good choices to reach some of those health goals are primarily important. And there are so many different metrics that we can measure, and measuring metrics can be helpful and important to help us see, are we moving closer towards our fitness goals, towards our healthy lifestyle goals? And that will be your external motivation, looking at those numbers. And I don't recommend that you look at those numbers very often. People will give you different recommendations about when to look at specific metrics. And, that's for you to decide individually, depending on, again, how that motivates you. But I think when we focus on the process, we become more invested in that process because it's something that we can accomplish every single day versus that long-term goal of achieving certain metrics. And that takes time and dedication, which once you reach some of those goals, you'll feel that sense of success, but you can have that success day to day. And I think people pick January 1st because it's a new beginning. I am going to take this opportunity for a new beginning to start my goals. Or sometimes it happens on a Monday. Monday is going to be my new goal. But I think it's important for people to realize every single day can be a new beginning. So just because you feel like you're off your path on one day, it doesn't mean that the whole rest of your day has to be ruined. It doesn't mean that the whole week has to be ruined. Take it day to day, moment to moment, and find what encourages you. Find that why of why you want to accomplish this goal, and describe it in as much detail as possible so that when you are facing those roadblocks or you're not feeling the motivation, you can revisit that why and re-inspire yourself to continue through that process that you set.
Yeah, there's one thing that really gets me in that. So you talk about a lot of the day to day, and when you talk about the day to day, do you find that it's better to focus on each individual day, or do you think that there should be we should plan days in ahead, or really try to figure out how to mesh the days and the weeks and the months and the years? Because there are a lot of people who set like their daily goals, for example, but there are also the people who set their daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and yearly goals, at the same time.
Right. So we don't want to get overly focused and too in the weeds with all the goal setting. Goal setting is great, but it can take over our lives to a certain extent. So if we try to plan out every single minute, every single day, that's going to become overwhelming, because then if we don't make that plan on a day, we might feel like, oh, shoot, I'm not successful because I didn't write out my plan for the day. Now, when you're working with a certified personal trainer, for example, they're there to help you make those plans. So they can make the plans for you so that you don't have to think about that. So my recommendation is to outsource some of your planning so that you can focus again on your process. You can outsource that planning in ways that are low cost or no cost. So it does cost a certain amount of money to have a personal trainer or to belong to a gym or to have these different ways to measure your metrics. What you can also do is do an online search. What kind of program do you want to follow, and do an online search for that to see what you can find. And then that will help you set some of these longer term goals that's more connected to that external motivation, but it will also help you learn the step-by-step of how to create your process, your day-to-day. So I think it's good to set maybe weekly goals and then look at what can I do each day to reach my weekly goal, and set windows. So saying I am going to exercise 1 to 3 days this week, because we don't know, maybe, I definitely work in a field where I don't know what my day-to-day is going to be. It could be different every day. So if I set a window for myself, if I said I'm going to work out between 1 and 3 days a week this week, and if I get completely booked solid and I have my one day, then I'm still successful in that goal. And my process during the workout is just I want to feel good. I want to disconnect. I want to clear my mind. And that sense of achievement could help motivate me to continue trying to fit workouts in during different times. And that might lead to needing to do an early morning workout where I might think, oh man, I don't want to do this early morning workout, but I know I'm going to feel awesome after I do it. So just get up and do it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, there's so much testing that has to go into it, right? Like you're saying, you kind of have to see, maybe you're a night owl, maybe you're early riser, right? Or maybe, there are all these, I guess, things that we need to really consider when going into this. And that's why I really suggest for the people that are really interested in getting into it, and I think you would agree with me on this one, you need to be really, really into it, right? Like you need to, if you're going to set your mind on working out, the reason why most people don't work out in the first place is because they haven't completely dedicated themselves to it. They say, you know what, I'm going to work out this much and that's going to be set in stone. It's like, no, you're going to have to keep changing it. You're going to have to keep testing. You're going to have to keep, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. You're going to have to keep, sort of manipulating your own tactics to finally get to somewhere that you want to be.
Yes. And I think that process is so intimidating. And that's what gets in the way of people even starting. So just think about what we've talked about up to this point. It's so much information to process and digest. So to new listeners who might be feeling intimidated about this, just take a little bit at a time. Take one piece of information that we're talking about today and use that to start your exercise plans or your running. And know that it's a trial and error process. What works for you might not work for me and vice versa. So that's why I think it's also important to be open to defining what success means to you day to day, to be able to try something new and to be able to know, well, if this doesn't work for me, it doesn't mean that all running or all exercise is not going to be for me. Just know that there are different things to try and your body will respond differently than somebody else's body. So let yourself know and be kind to yourself and know that there will be barriers to having a regular exercise plan and to leading a healthy lifestyle. Once you start engaging in that lifestyle, you'll recognize the barriers and you can make plans to work through those barriers. And I keep bringing up the early morning because that's just a common barrier that I hear from people is I'm tired and I want to sleep and I don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes it's okay to do that. Sometimes your body needs that rest. Allow your body to have that rest. Other days when you've had the correct amount of rest for your system, challenge yourself and go for that exercise, go for that workout.
Yeah, there's a great thing that I did and to really fix that, to fix, first of all, it's funny. We started talking about fear in the beginning and then we started talking about how important it is to get started and how much effort it takes. And I can understand why people are fearful. I really can understand because, you look at, there was a great study. They found that when people set an important goal in their lives, 92% of people failed. Right. And it's really interesting to see, what a lot of people will fail. So, I think that it is legitimate that there are fears that come from this. But at the same time, one of the most beautiful things is, I was talking to Nick Lugo on one of my podcasts, and she was like, I have never done anything in my entire life that required a big step. It starts with the baby steps. And that's what I did too when it came with working out. Instead of, I always said, I was like, all right, 1 hour a day or nothing, right? Like a workout is not complete unless it's 1 hour a day. And then I went online, I did research, like you said, and I found, you know what? Maybe someone said, they're like, maybe instead of doing 1 hour workouts a day, we could do a 5-minute workout a day. One that doesn't require sweat, so we don't even have to take a shower afterwards. And it's very low, let's say calorie burning, so it doesn't really, bother us that much. But it just, we could do it every day, so it sort of gets us into it. So every morning, since then, when I say I started working out 5 months ago, all I did was every day I woke up and I did one set of push-ups and I hung from a bar, pull-up bar, and I just hung there. Didn't do any pull-ups for about like a minute, and that was it. took maybe about 3 minutes. And by doing that, instead of it wasn't intense, it wasn't anything that required a lot of fear, but at the same time, it established consistency. I was able to do it day over day, and develop these small habits to the point where now I've been able to do it so consistently that I've been able to add push-ups and hangs. And now I do a different, like calf raises, and then I do ab workouts, and I do all of them now because I've established that consistency, and I've really been able to build up instead of just starting it all right away.
Yes, and developing that consistency and developing those habits will help you build on it. So you can build onto that 5 minutes, and you can build onto that 10 minutes, onto that 15 minutes, again, to reach whatever physiologically makes sense for your body.
So what do you think, what the reason that I've sort of come up to in my mind is that people often want to get it over with, right? I find that people have these short-term goals, right? They have these, I'm just going to start going to the gym, and I'm not really going to think about it afterwards. I'm just going to go to the gym 1 hour every day. I'm going to go on Monday at 5 p.m., or every day at 5 p.m., whatever. And then I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to have this plan. And I find that in my mind, I would say that the biggest problem there is impulsivity, right? We want to get the results, and we want to get them now. We want to lose our weight now. We want to, establish our schedule now. Do you find that is correct in saying that, maybe a big problem is that we're not willing to play the long-term game. We want to play the short-term game and get the results now?
So I think that we live in a society that rewards results now and rewards immediate gratification. And that's not the reality in many cases. So if you expect that, if you expect a quick fix, if somebody's trying to sell you a quick fix, run away in the opposite direction, because there are no quick fixes when it comes to fitness. It's a lifestyle. It's something that we do for our entire lives, that we can live long lives, that we can be healthy. And when I say that, I also think it's important to say that there are people who will struggle with specific medical conditions and medical limitations, but there are still different ways that those individuals can participate in a healthy lifestyle. So instead of looking for that quick fix, let go of that right away. Just know that that is not realistic. And that's part of even disconnecting with technology. And even though I mentioned earlier all the metrics and things like that, we don't want to become too attached to those metrics, because those won't show us the quick fix and the immediate gratification. So I think that you're right in that a lot of people will give up because they don't see those immediate results. And it's that long-term commitment that will help you see the results that you want to see, or feel the results that you want to feel, or help you with the psychological components of feeling happier, feeling physically better, having a better outlook on the world. And that sounds really simplistic and Pollyanna-ish, but when we live in a world like we do today with so many different types of issues that are slammed in our face every single day, it's important to take a step back and recognize some of the positive things in life. And again, as I said in the beginning, that is not to ignore negativity. That's not to ignore bad things that are going on. It's to give yourself a break, to reset, and again, focus on what you can control, and focus on a process that will help you live a healthy lifestyle so that you can be a good member of society, whatever that means in your profession. For me, for my role, it's being a good counselor and a good professor. So I have to take care of myself and commit to my exercise. So I am 100% present for my students and my clients. And if I'm not, then I'm not doing the best that I can do for my students and for my clients. So that's part of my why. I have a couple of different whys, but that's a big part of it, is I want to be healthy and present for people who interact with me in that way, so that I can help them live happier lives, or help my students, help their clients live better lives. And again, when we define happier or better or successful, it's so individually defined. For me, it's helping my clients understand what that means for them, again, day to day and within different stages of your life. So what is successful to you as a teenager will be different each decade that you move forward in your life. So I think it's understandable to know that we will change some of the process, or change some of our goals, change some of our ideas about what a fulfilling, healthy, happy life looks like.
Yeah, and I think there's one important principle that you said throughout all of that, and I think this is one of those things that I guess stays consistent throughout time. It's focus on the things that you can control. Like that's such a powerful idea of being able to say, you know what, especially if we're talking about weight problems. I ask the question all the time. There's two different philosophies on whether or not you should weigh yourself every single day, because philosophy one, if you weigh yourself every single day, then I'll say the negative, right? The negative is that you will focus so much on the thing that you can't control. You can't control your weight. You can control what you're eating, which then controls your weight, but you can't control your weight directly. You can't say I'm going to lose 5 pounds and lose 5 pounds. You can say I'm going to eat and maybe that's going to help me lose 5 pounds. Therefore, by saying that I'm going to weigh myself every day, you're focusing so much on the results that you end up really forgetting, all you have to do, eat healthy, and you get there. All you have to do, work out. There's a basic formula I think that we all know. It's like if you eat incredibly healthy and you work out consistently, then most likely you will get there, right? So that's the argument against weighing yourself every single day. The other argument, which the popular weight loss program called Noom actually does use this. They make sure that people weigh themselves every day, and the reasoning for that is so that people can become conscious, right? So that people can, if they slip, they know that they've slipped. If they gain 2 pounds, they know that they've gained 2 pounds and they could recorrect their course of action. So I would love to know sort of where you fall on that debate as to whether or not you should weigh yourself every day, every week, every month, or every year, right? Whether or not, if it's not even that important.
Yes, I am definitely not a fan of people taking their weights every day because there's so much variation. So for women, for example, if they are experiencing different hormonal changes during different times in their life, during different cycles of the month, you're going to have a significant fluctuation in your weight. So that is one cautionary thing that I mentioned. Also, if people are on certain medications or have medical conditions or other hormonal conditions not related to a cycle, that will significantly impact your weight too. So I think it's important to not be too obsessed with that kind of a number, and knowing that, again, if that's part of the outcome, and I'm not overly familiar with the Noom program, so I can't speak directly to that, but I have worked with people who have issues in terms of weight and eating disorders or disordered eating. So that's something that we focus on too. And when people are in programs specifically to address disordered eating and in clinical eating disorders, they work with an entire team of specialists to help them with that. And weighing yourself day to day is definitely not part of that. I think it is good to know some of your numbers. I think it is good to be aware of your habits, but that goes back to the process. So some people might argue that doing that daily weigh-in might give you that habit forming process of doing something day to day within a routine. But I really caution people, if you're becoming overly concerned with that or distracted by your numbers, then that's something to step back on. If you go to a hot yoga class, your weight's going to be different than when you went to that hot yoga or before that hot yoga class. So that's because you sweat so much and you're letting go. And I think that sometimes if people are too tied to those numbers, maybe they won't hydrate properly during exercise, and that can be very.
Well, that's the thing, there are two real problems that I would say with that you really hit on, and I'd love to really talk about them. First of all, I have a water bottle here, right? For anyone who's just listening, it's just your typical 16-ounce water bottle, right? And the thing is, we don't really think about this, but this is 1 pound. My friend, one of my best friends was a wrestler in high school. And he used to say, he's like, I would dehydrate the crap out of myself. And then what I'd end up doing is I'd chug these water bottles and he'd look at me, drink a whole water bottle and say, I just gained 1 pound. And 1 pound is pretty significant, but at the same time, it has nothing to do with whether or not he's gaining fat. It has nothing to do with whether or not he's gaining muscle. It's just, he has more weight of water inside of his body, and it's that simple. So the fluctuations are something that's super important. And another thing that really, go for it.
Especially if you're in a sport where you have to weigh in. So I did a presentation with colleagues with the Association for Applied Sports Psychology about making weight risk and rewards. And we wrote something up on Psychology Today and also on the Association for Applied Sports Psychology website specifically about that. And how do you help people, athletes, coaches, parents who are in that category of a weighted sport where they are being weighed for weight class or they're judged aesthetically, and looking at healthy ways to engage in that kind of a sport. And wrestling and martial arts and mixed martial arts and boxing and some of the combat sports are known for, and gymnastics, swimming, skating, are known for having to have a certain look or certain weight for competition. So there are healthy ways to go about that. And again, there are professionals to help people do that in a way that's not going to be harmful to you. And I think that again goes to being overly tied to some of those numbers and weighing yourself day to day, when knowing if you're going to be working out for 3 hours a day, you're going to have a change because you're losing fluids.
Yeah, it's really like every wrestler who goes through that, every boxer who goes through that, I can speak for wrestlers, every wrestler who dehydrates themselves to a crazy amount. And, my friend used to eat celery as his meal every day. And it's like, he acknowledged that it's not healthy for him. He acknowledged that it's not good for them. But at the same time, it's just so difficult to, you got to make the weight. You got to make the weight. And, I would love to see if you had any tips, for wrestlers, boxers, anything like that, just off the top of the head to be able to balance health and also maintaining the weight.
For sure. Know your walking weight and know your competition weight and your fighting weight. I think that's extremely important. And then you work with your coaches and you work with a registered dietitian, you work with a nutritionist, with a trainer to make those changes in your walking weight and your competition weight in a way that's not going to be harmful to your body. And I don't have specific tips about how to do that just because everybody's bodies are so different. But if you have a team around you that you can trust and people who treat you in a respectful way and treat you treat your team in a respectful way too, then they can get to know you, get to know your body, you get to know your body, and you'll learn what works for you to get to those points.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I do think it's really important to be able to balance, like there are obviously like fundamental laws of human nature, as in if you don't eat a lot, then you are going to suffer health effects. But at the same time, I do think it is important to acknowledge the individual differences. And it's very difficult to do that in a wrestling culture, any physical activity culture. I think we could get back to marathoning, and marathoning is like you have to push your body so much further than you would expect. And really, there's this rule that it's the Navy SEAL rule. It's the 40% rule. And the 40% rule says that when you feel like you've hit the point of physical exhaustion, you still have 60% left. You've only hit 40% of your capacity, right? Whenever you're running, your brain is telling you to stop because it knows that it's losing resources and it knows that it's pushing itself to its limits. But at the same time, your body could still go further. Your brain is just telling you to stop. Your brain is telling that your body can't take it. But at the same time, your body can take it. Your brain just wants you to stop. So it is really difficult towing the line between, what is healthy and what isn't.
Yes. And then understanding the line between how do I push myself further versus I'm injured and I need to stop. And in the field of sports psychology, we talk about that so much. We talk about you have the ability to move yourself and to push yourself further. But do we say not to the point of exhaustion? Because you see so many marathoners collapse right after they hit the finish line because they are exhausted. So again, looking at how do we balance this need and this want, this desire for outstanding physiological performance without the risk of injury and even organ damage? Yeah,
there's a great quote that was in the 50-50-50 documentary where one of the runners who was running with Dean, he said, one of the greatest things about running and marathoning is pushing yourself to your limits and really breaking what you perceive to be your previous limits, right? Like if you never push yourself to your limits, you have no idea where your limits are. But then he said, the paradox to it is it's really interesting to see, and it's really difficult to acknowledge that we have limits. You could push yourself up to the limit, but at some point you have to hit a limit, and it's really difficult to be able to toe that line.
Yes, and I think a lot of people stop before they hit that limit. I think people stop when they feel that sense like, oh my gosh, I can't go any farther. My body can't go any farther, when we can do it. And I think, again, that's where having people around you to cheer you on, to help you through it, is phenomenal. And looking at this is where the metrics come back in. So looking at what your baseline numbers are, how much weight you can lift, how far you're running, how fast you're running, are you enjoying this run? Those kinds of things, when we measure those, then we can compete against ourselves and not necessarily compete against other people. So if you're registering to compete, if you're in some kind of a sporting event to compete, that's a different kind of conversation, but you still can move past your limits. And I think that we have to understand how to do that psychologically. How do we train our minds to do it? And how do we allow our bodies to catch up with our minds? And sometimes that's as simple as somebody, if you're on a racetrack, somebody looking at you and saying, you've got this, you can do it. And that's why you'll see so many marathoners with their names on their shirts on the front and the back, because having random people call out your name when you're on the course and just encouraging you is so energizing that sometimes gives you that external push to move you forward. And then referring again back to your why for that internal motivation to continue moving forward to reach whatever finish line you're going for.
So you are coming out with a book soon. It is tentatively titled Mind Over Marathon. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about people who are coming out with, trying to do marathons, but at the same time, they believe that they can't do it, right? They believe that they really are going to struggle. And you know what? Maybe even a big misconception of the people who are sitting there on mile 12 out of 26 and are really just, struggling to push through.
Well, I do have a workbook called Mind Over Marathon that's on my website now. And the new book I'm coming out with is also Mind Over Marathon 26.2 Stories of Inspiration. So this will look at ways to help people, again, achieve that success in their minds so that they can achieve whatever success their bodies are moving towards. And my whole point of writing this book is I'm a runner, and I am inspired by so many runners around me. And I am what's called a back of the pack runner. So I am not a fast runner. I do enjoy being on the same course as the elite runners. It's so exciting to see people at their physical best and loving what they're doing and just really inspiring people all over the world. So when I watch that, and I've watched so many races here in Chicago, I've competed. And when I say competed, I mean registered. I'm not competing for any prizes. I'm doing it because I love running and I love being out there and seeing our beautiful city. But I have been on the sidelines before as a spectator and cheering people on. And you see people of every size and shape on that course, all different people, all different ages. And it's just so wonderful to know that, similar to what we were talking about earlier, is everybody can somehow improve their psychological well-being to encourage them to do something new and to break barriers. And I think one of the first times I recognized this was when I was at Loyola University in Chicago, and we have our beautiful, famous, wonderful Sister Jean. And I remember teaching a step class when step was the big thing to do. And Sister Jean was at the back of my class on many, many occasions, just rocking it out. And sometimes she would follow our steps, sometimes she would do her own steps, but it was just so awesome to have multiple generations in this workout room that I was instructing. Mainly it was college age students, but we had some other faculty, and we had Sister Jean in there. Yeah. And it's just looking at everybody has the same goal in there. Everybody wants to complete this class right now. Everybody wants to have fun, and everyone wants to feel healthy. So when I look at marathon runners, I definitely see the athleticism in the professional and the elite runners. And I see the people who are like me, the back of the packers, who are just doing this for the joy of running and to be out there with everybody, because our goal again is to have a safe race. Yeah. And I think that this book will help people understand that they can overcome what they thought they couldn't, whether that's a marathon or some other issue that pops up for you in life. If you have a roadmap to get to where you want to go, and trust yourself, trust your intrinsic instincts, your motivation as your own GPS. In case there are roadblocks to reroute, you can still do it. So I'm really excited to tell stories of different runners and what they've done to achieve success in their own races.
Well, it's really cool, what you're really talking about, which is something I find so fascinating. You're saying that there are people of different body types, different sexes, different ages, different everything, who are achieving the same goal, a worthwhile goal, not just any goal, a worthwhile goal. And what you're saying when you say that is the only difference between all of these people, because they have everything that goes on is they all different. The only similarity actually that we could say is the mind. The only similarity is that they all have the same mindset. They all have the same relentless need to pursue a goal, and that means the only thing that stands in between somebody who is thinking about running versus someone who is running is not, physical ailments. It's not, any weight, sex, age, anything like that. It's all psychological. And I think, the title Mind Over Marathon really gives such a beautiful way of thinking that. It's like, what? Not only is pushing through the 25th mile super important, but just getting to the first is something that's just so difficult that most people just never end up getting.
Getting to the first and getting to that start line. It is just so exciting and exhilarating. And I don't know, my mind changes about what's more exciting, the start line or the finish line. And they're just both such rewarding experiences, whether it's a mile race or it's a marathon. I remember doing a 5K when I wasn't running as much as I had been in the past. And I can't say I was running with my friend because she's definitely an elite runner and Iron Woman triathlon. She, wins races. And so she lapped me a few times doing my 5K. And so that's just over 3 miles for people that don't know the distance. But that I could laugh at that because I knew I'm going into this not having run for a while and coming off of a few injuries and just going out there for fun. And it was for a charity. So of course that makes it more meaningful to me too. And I think what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of races are lottery races. So for example, with a lot of the marathon, they're called the majors, the world major marathons. There's either a lottery to get in or you have to make a certain time, which is really, really fast. Sometimes it's just 3 hours, just under 4 hours. So that's a pretty fast marathon. And one way that people can bypass that requirement or bypass being in a lottery is to enter through a charity. So there are millions, tens of millions of dollars raised in charity for people to have the opportunity to run in some of these races on some of these elite courses. So when I was talking earlier about how do you contribute to society, by engaging in some of these races, you are contributing tens of millions of dollars on a collective level to charities that are important to people. So that aspect of it too is also very alluring for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that's so powerful. Wow. I think one of the most interesting parts of your specific story is that every time you say I am a back of the pack runner, you smile.
I do. I just did.
And that's the thing. It's so interesting because most people would be like, I'm a back of the pack runner and I'm not happy about it. And I'm really trying to improve, they sort of get down on themselves, but you actually sort of take pride on it. You see it from a positive perspective. So I'd love to see, I'd love to ask why do you love, or why do you identify yourself with pride as being the person who is a back of the pack runner?
Well, part of it is all runners are runners. So I think that's one aspect of it. Another aspect goes back to my why. Why am I running? I don't run for time. I usually don't run for distance unless I'm in an actual event. And I run for the pure joy of running. And it's my time to completely disconnect. So sometimes when I'm running, I won't have headphones in. I'll just kind of look at the environment and see what's around me, listen to the sounds of the cities. Sometimes I'll listen to podcasts. I'll listen to music. music. I like to, as a group fitness instructor, I like to move to the beat of a specific music. And there are, I mean, I'm dating myself as I was about to say tapes, but there are playlists that you can have that will help you run a specific beat that will help you reach your time. I'm not interested in time. I'm interested in that physiological feeling, getting in the zone and just disconnecting. And that is what makes me happy. And I can feel being excited talking about it. That makes me happy. If I were concentrating on time, then that takes me into more of a concentration mode where my reason for exercising is to relax my mind, because my mind is so active when I'm with my clients, when I'm with my students, when I'm doing my work, when I'm researching, that I want something to shut off that analytical piece of my brain.
Yeah, well, that's so intrinsic, right? What you just described is just completely intrinsic. You know, most people strive towards the goal of being, you know, the fastest runner or things like that. You know, just having the goal of, I would say that's more of a spiritual goal. That's more of a goal of getting in touch with yourself, you know, really understanding who you are and getting lost in thought, you know, like as you're running. I think, you know, I take walks every morning, so I guess it's kind of like that. But at the same time, you know, as I'm going through these walks, you're getting lost in thought, you know, like you don't think about anything and you're not consciously trying to think of anything, but then thoughts keep popping up in your head and you're like, oh, that was an interesting idea. This is pretty cool. And you start sort of discovering yourself, because we spend most of our time, you know, I guess is a critique on society, but this is just true in general, you know, just the fact that we spend so much time stuck in our daily tasks or stuck by distractions and all these things. Just being with your spirit or being with yourself is something that's so powerful that you could really use to really just understand yourself. And that could definitely be done by running.
Yes. And I'll also say when I'm trying to figure out a problem or something is bothering me, when I go and clear my mind with a run or with a workout, I can't always say the problem is solved, but I definitely turn out with a different perspective on that problem or new potential solutions to that problem. I frequently will write things in my mind when I'm running. So when I wrote the article, What I Love and Hate About Early Morning Workouts, as I was about halfway through that workout, I had the whole article written in my mind. And I got home, didn't shower, didn't change, pulled out my computer and just started typing. And
was that an early morning or late at night?
That was an early morning workout. That was one of those 5 o'clock, 5:30 a.m. workouts.
Wow. I can imagine you're just sitting there. You're like, you know, first of all, you start off the run. You're like, yeah, this is great. And then halfway through, you're just like, you know what? There are a lot of things that I hate about this moment right now. I'm really, there are parts of this that I'm definitely not enjoying.
Definitely. Starting that run was hard. That was a hard run to start, and it wasn't a far run. It was a treadmill run because it was the middle of the winter, but it was, I remember grumbling to myself as I was pushing the buttons to start the treadmill, but it ended fabulously. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. I think it's so wonderful, you know, just first of all, just the feeling of being consistent, right? Like after 3 months, you know, you don't feel it every day, but, you know, after I think it was like I had 3 months of working out consistently, let's say semi every day. So like, you know, 90-something% of days. And I would be like, there was one day where it hit me. I'm like, wow, I just worked out for 90 straight days. Like, how awesome is that? You know, how amazing is it that I've been able to develop this beautiful, consistent habit and that it's actually caused a lot of benefit to my life. Like, that's such a beautiful feeling that comes with consistency, not the working out every single day as hard as you can, 1 hour a day, you know, just the beautiful feeling of being like, I'm able to do something that I previously thought I couldn't do. And that's something that's beautiful.
Right. And I think we can learn that from marathoners. We can learn a lot from marathoners with that consistency, with that dedication, with the recognition that there might be injuries and we need to rest from those injuries and then we can get back on it. But it's it's inspirational, it's spiritual, it's looking at finding what drives you to start that plan.
Well, here's one thing that I think will be very beneficial for the people, because I would say that so far I have been successful in working out, and the main tenet of what I did to start working out was something so unorthodox, but I think it's something that's so, I think it's powerful, because I think it's helped me so much throughout this entire process. When I told you about my morning workout, it was chest and back, right? The hangs were mostly like shoulders and back. Notice how I didn't say abs or biceps, right? Notice how I didn't say, the parts of my body that would make me look the best, right? That extrinsic motivator of, I want my biceps to look huge, or I want my abs to look great for, the summer or whatever, that idea. I made sure I actually did the unorthodox concept of, instead of starting with my abs, I explicitly said I am not working on my abs or biceps. And that is because I wanted to first establish that I am doing this for me. I am doing this for the intrinsic feeling that comes from starting my day off on the right path, from getting the energy that comes from working out, and also just being able to establish just a very consistent, solid morning routine. And once I had those 3 goals down, once I established these intrinsic goals, then I was like, all right, maybe I could add on some extrinsic motivators. But, once I established that intrinsic motivator, it made all the difference.
Yes, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, it was something really powerful. And I do think that, that doing it through runs is something that's really powerful, runs and walks and all that stuff. So I do want to give an ask, and I think this might be the final question of the interview. Why do you think people should do, out of all the physical exercise, what is so special about marathons?
I think the special thing about marathons, again, is the fact that we can have so many different types of people in all different stages of their lives on the exact same course at the same moment on the same day, experiencing the joy of accomplishing a major goal. And many people feel like a marathon is an impossible feat, and it is not impossible. People can do this. Look at the resources that are out there and grab a running buddy and get out there. I think that what's important is understanding that we can reach for goals that feel like they're so far away. Step by step, we can take it and make it to that finish line. And whether it's an actual marathon or whether it's some other goal you set for yourself, taking that first step will get you there and will get you to the finish line.
Yeah. And I do challenge every single person who's listening to this. I challenge so strongly not to go out and run a marathon right now, because that's stupid. I don't suggest that you go out and make a plan, say I'm going to work out for 2 hours a day. I suggest that I challenge you that for the next 30 days, you work out for 5 minutes a day at the same time every single day. Establish a habit of, once you wake up, right before you go to sleep, right after lunch, right before lunch, whatever, right? Work out for 5 minutes. Take a 5-minute walk. Take a 5-minute, push-up session, whatever it is, and start with that small baby step. And then from there, continue it, reward your doing it consistently, be happy with the fact that you're able to do it consistently, and start with that one baby step and grow from there.
That's an excellent piece of recommendation.
Yeah. Well, Michele Kerulis, thank you so much for coming on, and have a good day. Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you.